names 5 states as murder incorporated. Rebel miners' leaders meet the coal board in secret. The government lifts the Falklands trade ban on Argentina. Rockall, the long, wet sit-in, is nearly over. Here comes Boris Becker, the millionaire. Good evening. President Reagan has made one of his strongest attacks against countries which he said support international terrorism, describing their leaders as misfits and squalid criminals. He said Iran, Libya, North Korea, Cuba, and Nicaragua were a confederation of terrorist states, united in their fanatical hatred of America. The Soviet Union, he said, had a close relationship with almost all of them. But Syria, which helped to negotiate the release of the Beirut hostages, was not included in the President's list, although the State Department has listed it in the past as supporting terrorism.
The speech came as America recovers from the hostage trauma, amid displays of patriotism and a heated debate about what should be done next. Having torn up his speech about law to this premier gathering of American lawyers, Mr. Reagan delivered his analysis of terrorism and who's behind it.
Iran, Libya, North Korea, Cuba, Nicaragua. Most of the terrorists who are kidnapping and murdering American citizens and attacking American installations are being trained, financed, and directly or indirectly controlled by a core group of radical and totalitarian governments, a new international version of Murder Incorporated.
Observers regarded what came next as the president at his most outspoken.
And we're especially not going to tolerate these attacks from outlaw states run by the strangest collection of misfits, Looney Tunes, and squalid criminals since the advent of the Third Reich.
Rhetoric in plenty, but no specific action intimated, and that is what has stoked resentment in right-wing circles here, from whom Mr. Reagan has drawn so much support in the past. Richard Viguerie, a leading conservative who played a key role in getting Mr. Reagan elected in the first place.
I think it is a dangerous situation to have a president who talks very tough, but almost every time backs down, backs away from carrying through on tough policy.
What has happened to Reagan the gunslinger, asks the Washington Post. From other sources, quotes from a senior White House advisor, Pat Buchanan, about having serious misgivings as to whether Reagan will ever fire more than words. Other officials counter that when he strikes, the president will be able to show with what restraint he acted before. Still others, that whatever plans exist on Nicaragua, Lebanon, and elsewhere, the president is waiting his moment to move. John Snow, News at 10, Washington.
The government's lifting the 3-year-old ban on trade with Argentina in an attempt to improve relations. The ban, which was imposed after the Falklands invasion, will end at midnight. The Foreign Office hopes that Argentina will match the gesture, but warns again that Britain won't discuss the sovereignty of the Falklands.
This is the first positive step towards normalizing relations between Britain and Argentina since the secret meeting between the two sides in Switzerland this time last year. Since the talks at a stately home near Bern broke down, there's been deadlock. Britain wanted at that meeting to agree a series of steps back towards normal relations, but the Argentines said they wouldn't talk about anything else unless sovereignty was on the agenda. And Britain remains adamant that sovereignty isn't up for discussion. Since then, the opening of the new airport in the Falklands has threatened to make relations between the two countries even worse. Now, Britain's making, as it were, a free gift to the Argentines to try and break the deadlock. While our government's prepared to let in imports from Argentina again, they have no agreement that Argentina will accept our exports. Ministers said today that the move should help the recovery of the Argentine economy, and that in turn should help to preserve the country's fledgling new democracy. The government are, of course, looking for Argentina to reciprocate. In 1981, the last year of normal relations between the two countries, we exported £161 million worth of goods to Argentina and imported £137 million worth, mainly meat, maize, wool and leather. So if Argentina matched today's gesture by Britain, it would be helpful to both economies. But many feel that Britain will have to make several more gestures of this kind before Argentina is likely to respond, and a full resumption of normal diplomatic relations still seems a long way off.
Leaders of the Nottinghamshire Union of Mineworkers, the new name for the breakaway union, tonight held their first meeting with coal board officials since they left the National Union on Saturday. They discussed forming a closed shop. The new union says the NOT's NUM president, Mr. Ray Chadburn, who supported the miners' strike, has resigned. Mr. Chadburn has denied this and says he is just refusing to lead a breakaway union. Notts miners, who are loyal to Arthur Scargill and against the new leadership, today gave their group a name too. It's called Forum. A spokesman claimed it represented a quarter of the 28,000 Nottinghamshire miners.
The first meeting of the executive of the new breakaway Notts Union had first to deal with the position of their former president. He came out after an hour of what he called something of a slanging match, claiming he'd been told to leave the building. But he was sad rather than angry at the turn of events.
Nottinghamshire's going to be bitterly divided. We're going to have a Notts area union, we're going to have a national union, and what is more important, we're going to have members who don't want to be in any union. So therefore, I can't see any sense in what they're doing at all. Other than they're playing into the hands of Ian McGregor. He is so pleased.
The new leadership claimed Mr. Chadburn had resigned and wouldn't be allowed back in the building, and they dismissed his claims of playing into the hands of Mr. McGregor.
If anybody's played into the hands of McGregor, it's obviously the national executive.